Welcome back. The University of the Witwatersrand says it is developing a new generation of microneedle patches as a painless, easy-to-use alternative to deliver pediatric HIV treatment. It is meant to offer slow-release antiretrovirals, reducing treatment to just 1 or 2 weekly applications instead of daily dosing. Researchers Dr. Mershen, Govender, as well as Hannah Wellington join us to give us more on this. Hannah, good to have you on the program. I want to start with the big picture here. What inspired the development of the microneedle patch for pediatric HIV treatment, and how does it work?
Thanks for having us, Nhlanhla. So what inspired us is that children are often overlooked when it comes to HIV treatment options. So there's lots of progress and innovation that gets made with the adult treatments, but often pediatric treatments are overlooked. And at the moment, adherence and compliance issues. So adherence and compliance just basically means if you're taking the medicine in the right way at the right time, as often as prescribed. So adherence and compliance issues when it comes to pediatric ARVs is the main hurdle to successful therapeutic outcomes. So if a caregiver skips a dose and a child doesn't get that dose, and this happens for several days, this can result in treatment failure, it can result in disease progression, and unfortunately, it can end in mortality. So we are trying to mitigate this by providing an alternative like our microneedle patches that are going to be simple, effective to use, and it should be a game changer in terms of adherence and compliance. So essentially how the patch works is that they have these very tiny needles on them. They're micron-sized, so they're not really going to be visible. But the good thing is that they're also painless. So once you apply the patch, these needles will go into the skin and they'll dissolve and release the ARV slowly over several days into the skin. So that's essentially how they will work.
Right. Dr. Govender, from a pharmaceutical science perspective, what makes microneedle patches a better alternative, if you will, to current oral ARV treatments for children?
Thank you, Nhlanhla. As Hannah has said, the current status of the treatment of or ARV treatment in pediatric patients is that there's a lot of barriers and a lot of issues with dosing. This is usually because of the need or the requirement to use adult tablets or for disposable tablets to be administered or dissolved prior to giving to patients. So that has its own issues because it can actually lead to unpredictable dosing and inaccurate dosing at times, and that has its own issues. Even from a taste perspective, if you dissolve something and give it to a child, it can be a bit of a problem. So compared to these oral treatments, the microneedle patch, which is applied topically, this can be engineered to reproduce that or even improve on these oral treatments. Because the microneedles are engineered to be versatile but yet consistent, we can actually design them to replicate or replace oral ARV treatments and also have the added benefit of dosing only a few times a week, so they can actually be the amount of time and the pressure and the requirements on the caregiver is actually decreased.
Hannah, you've mentioned that crushed adult tablets are still used for kids, which can be dangerous as well. What are some of the real-world challenges, really, that caregivers then face that patch hopes to solve here as a solution?
So there's several problems that they face. So as you've mentioned, especially in resource-limited settings, sometimes at the primary healthcare facilities, they only have the adult tablets available. So this means that the caregivers are now going to have to crush these tablets and sprinkle a bit in food or in some sort of drink to give to their children. And as Prof. Govender had mentioned, this will result in unpredictable dosing. So you don't know if they're getting if you're underdosing, if you're overdosing. Now, even if we are in a setting where caregivers they have the dispersible tablets that are for the pediatrics, now they have to disperse that in water and give that to their child. And how do you know that they're getting the full amount, the full quantity? So now, again, we still result in a dosing error.
Yeah.
Again, sometimes some of the medications are available as liquid medicines, so syrups or suspensions. And these can be bitter tasting, and now parents have to try and taste mask it in food or drink. So again, we keep on seeing that the issue here is we don't know, is the child getting the full dose? And the thing is, with all this complex administration of crushing, dissolving, measuring out liquid medicines, this happens on a daily basis. So this is the caregiver's daily routine. So basically, by making this patch, we're trying to take away this burden and the stress that the caregivers have. And because it has a pre-measured dose in the patch, it's quick to apply, and it doesn't require food or water. And we know that we will have more predictable dosing. So those are all the challenges that we're trying to address with this patch.
Yeah. Dr. Govender, how do microneedles ensure accurate dosing and consistent absorption compared to liquids or pills, especially in children whose needs change as they grow as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way we actually formulate the microneedles and how we prepare them and the polymers and the additives that we use when we make these microneedles determine how they actually work. So they are quite consistent once they are prepared. And they also versatile in the way that you can increase the number of microneedles that you use, the size of the microneedles. And based on the composition that's actually made or the actual ingredients that are used to make these microneedles, we can cater for a growing child's needs in that way.
Hannah, a key part of your work is designing the patches to be low cost and easy to manufacture. How are you achieving this without compromising quality?
So I think it's important to make the distinction that low cost and if it's economical manufacturing method, it doesn't mean that we're compromising on quality. So we're still going to use the different materials that we use. We're going to make sure that they're affordable, but they're still going to be to the highest grade and standards and, approved by regulatory bodies. So we aren't going to, low cost and affordability doesn't mean cheap and substandard. And as well with this, when we producing and formulating these patches, we also do a lot of optimization of the formula. And after that, we will do testing in animal studies before we move on to clinical trials. So through all of those steps, we will ensure that there is the quality and we are getting the desired quantity and release rates of the drug that's necessary, and also make sure, most importantly, that it's safe.
Yeah.
So that's how we'll make sure that we strive to make sure that there's quality throughout.
Dr. Govender, the patches are 3D printed and don't need refrigeration. How does this then influence their scalability and potential distribution to rural or even remote areas of South Africa?
Okay. So 3D printing allows for scalability. The process itself is quite reproducible and accurate. So by 3D printing, we can allow for large-scale manufacture of these microneedles. But also because of the versatility of 3D printing, we can also modify the actual structure, the size of the microneedle patches based on the requirements for the patient's need. In terms of transportation and refrigeration, not having a requirement to refrigeration is actually a very good thing, because it can increase cost and it can increase the complexity of actual storage and actually transporting to far-reaching areas. So in the context of rural areas and far out areas, having a formulation that does not require refrigeration, specifically in an African setting and considering our climate, this actually is a great thing to not have refrigeration because we can ensure stability and that the microneedle patches that we prepare and give to patients are stable and they will behave exactly how we want them to behave.
Yeah. Hannah, what kind of feedback or reactions have you received from caregivers, healthcare workers, or even parents who've heard about this innovation?
Well, so far, there's only been some recent attention to this. So we haven't received any feedback as yet, because also we're still in the process of optimizing and getting the formulation right before we have to, maybe before we reach clinical trials and maybe having to get healthcare workers involved. And as well, like I mentioned, our research is only really getting out there now, so we haven't really had much feedback, but we are looking forward to that on, what the general public thinks of it.
Yeah. Dr. Govender, you also involved in broader research on the platform, including nanomedicine. Could the microneedle platform then be adapted in future for other diseases like TB or even vaccines?
Absolutely. So microneedles, like we said, are quite versatile platforms. They can be used for various purposes. They can be applied to various areas for a number of conditions. So in the WADA platform, we are actually already investigating the potential of using microneedles for TB, for vaccines, and even for cancer treatment as well. So the versatility of microneedles actually lends to this, and we are having good progress. So beyond just HIV for pediatric treatment, there is the potential for other conditions as well.
Yeah. Hannah, there's also a strong educational element in what you're doing, empowering small children and caregivers. How important is that human side of the innovation to you?
It's very important. So, sometimes as researchers and scientists, it's fun doing the science. But this research is not just for innovating in terms of science or pushing the needle forward in terms of science. This is about the kind of impact it can make to children and caregivers. The societal impact is what's most important to us. So it's not just research for the sake of research. So this patch is about improving the lives of children who are living with HIV and also supporting their caregivers. And since adherence, as I mentioned, adherence and compliance is the biggest hurdle that we're facing, this patch could be a game changer in terms of that.
Yeah.
And this means that we'll be helping more children stick and their caregivers to stick to the treatment, which means that we're going to get lower treatment failure rates. This will slow down disease progression, lower mortality rates, and even contribute to South Africa getting closer to its 90-90-90 target. So it has a really huge societal impact.
Yeah. Dr. Govender, looking ahead, what are the next key milestones, especially for this project, and what kind of support is most needed to move this from the lab into real-world rollout here?
Yeah, so the next steps would probably, as Hannah has said, is that we will optimize this formulation for varying individual needs and then test it in preclinical studies and then eventually to clinical trials and then possibly in the near future roll out to the general public to be used by pediatric patients. What is generally required is probably the funding behind it. So this does require a lot of time and a lot of funding to take this kind of platform through the individual hurdles from preclinical to clinical studies and even through regulatory requirements. So the major requirement is that we require funding and time to actually get all of this done.
Yeah. Hannah Wellington and Dr. Mershen Govender from the Wits Advanced Drug Delivery Platform. Thank you so much to you both for the incredible insights tonight. It's quite clear that this innovation isn't just scientific, it's a personal, practical and potentially transformative for children and families across the country. We do look forward to following your progress in future as well.